I have to be honest with you. I spent probably 20 minutes just staring at the cursor before we started
Oh,
this.
the blinking cursor, the
Just
worst.
staring. And the whole time there was this little voice in my head just going, you're wasting time. You're unstructured. You need a plan. Why haven't you initiated the task yet?
That is the universal hum of modern life, isn't it? That feeling that if you aren't moving, you're failing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And usually when I complain about this, people say, oh, you have poor executive functioning.
Like clinical term.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm a bad CEO of my own brain. Like I need to hire a better admin or just discipline myself into submission.
Right. Executive functioning is the gold standard for how we talk about getting things done. But what if that term isn't neutral? What if that voice telling you to initiate, what if it isn't actually you?
See, that's where today's deep dive gets a little spooky. We are looking at this really provocative piece by Jaime Hoerricks, a PhD. It's called Executive Functioning. The boardroom inside your head. Decolonizing the manager in the skull.
It's a heavy title.
It is. When I first read that, decolonizing the manager, I was skeptical. It sounds a bit much for a chat about why I can't do my laundry on time.
It does, but Hoerricks is making a really profound argument. He's saying that our struggle with focus isn't just, brain chemistry.
Yeah.
It's about a specific cultural structure that's living inside our minds.
He argues we've internalized a tiny manager.
A tiny manager running a meeting we never even agreed to attend.
A meeting I definitely did not RSVP for. So let's start with this metaphor because it is just so vivid. Hoerricks describes this executive voice, the one yelling at me, not as a helpful tool, but as a small manager who keeps the minutes of our worth.
Keeps the minutes of our worth. I mean, that's the key phrase right there.
Yes.
Think about what a manager does in an office. They track productivity. They measure your output. Hoerricks is saying we've installed that exact surveillance system in our own heads.
And it measures our value as people based on how much we produce. And he gets so specific about what this guy looks like. He says this internal executive wears patriarchy suit and checks capital's clock. But the line that really stuck with me and honestly kind of gave me the creeps was this one.
I think I know which one you mean.
He says, the voice sounds like a man who has never met the moon.
It's a haunting description, isn't it?
It is. But what does that actually mean? Never met the moon.
Well, think about the moon, right? It changes, it waxes, it wanes, it's cyclical, it affects the tides.
Right. It's not static.
No. And Hoerricks is saying this internal manager is totally disconnected from all of that, from natural cycles. He describes the voice as brisk, certain, allergic to weather.
Allergic to weather. Wow, that hits home.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel that. If I'm sick or if I'm sad or if it's just a gorgeous day and I want to sit outside, the manager doesn't care. He's just like, irrelevant. Get the spreadsheet done.
Yes. The demand for output is the same every single day, regardless of the condition.
It's sterile.
Precisely. It's an industrial force. It pretends it's just being neutral or logical, but Hoerricks points out that it's actually carrying an empire in its pockets.
Okay, so this is the part where you need to walk me through it. Because he says that patriarchy, whiteness, colonialism, and capitalism all share a tailor. They all cut the suit this manager is wearing. How do we get from I need to organize my closet all the way to colonialism?
It feels like a big leap, but
Yeah.
but stick with it. What is the main goal of, say, a factory or a colony?
Efficiency.
Extraction, exactly. It's taking a natural, messy landscape, a forest, a human population, whatever, and forcing it into a grid. You want predictable, standardized output.
Okay, I follow. You want the rows of corn to be perfectly straight.
Right. Now just apply that exact same logic to your own mind. The manager in your head wants you to be straight rows of corn.
Oh.
He wants your time to be standardized, your energy to be consistent. When Hoerricks says they share a tailor, he means they are all systems that value order and profit over natural rhythms and humanity.
So when I'm beating myself up for not being productive,
You are enforcing a colonial standard on your own consciousness.
man. So I'm not just procrastinating. I'm fighting a little imperialist in my brain.
In a way, yeah. You're fighting a system that views rest as lost revenue.
That explains why I feel so guilty when I'm doing nothing. It feels like theft.
And Hoerricks actually touches on that.
Yeah.
He critiques the very language we use, the corporate verbs masquerading as psychology.
Oh, this part was wild. I never realized how much corporate jargon I use for my own life. A psychologist will ask about planning, initiating, monitoring.
Totally. I need to initiate the laundry task. I need to monitor my hydration levels.
It sounds absolutely ridiculous when you say it out loud like that.
It does, but that's the clinical language. Hoerricks says these words belong in a boardroom, not in a human soul. He says this worldview treats forests as inventory.
And hours as currency.
Yeah.
You literally say it, spending time, wasting time, saving time.
Exactly. And if time is money, then just being is a waste of funds. In this grammar, Hoerricks writes, to be well is to behave like a tidy office.
A tidy office. That is the ideal, isn't it? I am constantly trying to declutter my brain to be this minimalist container where everything's filed away.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is my brain is more like, I don't know, a deeply chaotic used bookstore with a cat sleeping on the register.
I love that image.
And I can't find the book I'm looking for. But to the manager, that bookstore is a disaster. It's inefficient.
And this brings us to the most validating part of the source for me, the diagnosis. Hoerricks says the diagnosis of dysfunction is written before we even enter the room.
Why?
Because the entire system assumes that the tidy office is the only healthy way to exist.
So if you aren't a tidy office, what do you... Because he introduces this other concept, right? Gestalt time?
Yes. Gestalt, it's a German word, means the form or the whole.
I've heard of it, but usually with optical illusions. Like, do you see the vase or do you see the two faces?
Very similar idea. It's about perceiving the whole picture all at once. Hoerricks describes people with Gestalt minds as those who begin in the middle. They gather meaning before steps.
Okay, I need to understand what that looks like in practice. Because beginning in the middle sounds... well, it sounds disorganized to me.
Okay, let's take your example of the blinking cursor. A linear thinker, the boardroom thinker, starts at step 1. Subject line. Salutation. First paragraph. It's a straight line.
Right. That sounds lovely. I wish it did that.
But a Gestalt thinker, they can't write the first sentence until they understand the entire vibe of the thing. They need the context, the history, the emotional tone, the ultimate goal. So they might stare at the wall for 20 minutes.
Oh my God. That is exactly what I do. I pace around the room. I read 3 unrelated articles.
Yes. And the whole time, what is the manager in your head saying?
Why aren't you typing? You are lazy. You are procrastinating.
But Hoerricks says, no, you are gathering meaning. You are building the entire structure in your head so that when you do sit down,
It all just pours out in 5 minutes.
it pours out. And that's the friction. The Gestalt mind is judged by a model that was never built with our material.
Never built with our materials.
Yeah.
That makes me feel so much better. It's like being a diesel engine and everyone is yelling at you for not running on unleaded gas.
Or judging a poet by their ability to be an accountant. Hoerricks says this dysfunction label gets applied because our systems, our schools, our workplaces, they just don't recognize Gestalt processing as valid.
Which brings us to the origin story. Because I wasn't born hating the way I think. Hoerricks says these managers arrived early in childhood.
They did. He calls them micromanagers squatting behind the eyes.
Squatting. It sounds like they don't belong there, like they're trespassing.
They don't belong there. Think back to school. Think about the kids who were told to hurry up or stop daydreaming.
Focus on your work.
We are taught, as he says, to apologize for our tempo.
I remember that so vividly. I had a teacher who would stand over my desk while I was trying to start an essay and just tap her watch. It made me freeze up even more.
That freezing, that hesitation. The manager calls that laziness or defiance, but Hoerricks reframes it completely. He calls it discernment.
Discernment. That is such a gentle word.
It is. It suggests that maybe you aren't starting because your brain senses something is missing. Maybe you're waiting for the pieces to align. You're checking the weather that the manager ignores.
But the internal foreman, he speaks with the accent of schools and workplaces, and he just shouts that down.
That's such a good way to put it, isn't it? It's not your voice. It's the voice of every teacher, every boss you've ever had.
An external authority that set up a surveillance state inside my skull.
And it tells you that you are defective for not booting the approved operating system.
Okay, so I'm running a weird custom OS. It's maybe artistic, maybe intuitive, but it is definitely not Windows 95 Corporate Edition. So what do I do? This is the part that scares me. Because as much as I hate the manager, I need him.
That is the fear, right?
Yeah. If I kicked him out, I feel like I'd just sit on the couch eating cereal and never pay a bill again.
The fear that without the whip, we'd do nothing. And Hoerricks is very nuanced here. He isn't saying, burn down the boardroom and live in chaos.
Okay, good.
He explicitly says, I do not want to pretend the manager has no uses. The IRS doesn't care about your inner weather.
No, it does not.
So he distinguishes between two types of time, chronos and kairos.
I've heard these terms, but break them down for us in this context.
Chronos is clock time. Linear, sequential, measurable, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Hoerricks admits that Chronos has a job. He says it keeps trains from colliding and bread from burning.
Crucial functions.
Mm-hmm.
We like bread that isn't charcoal.
We do. We need to catch flights, pick up the kids. The manager is good at Chronos. The problem isn't that he exists. The problem, Hoerricks argues, is overreach. It's when the manager's language claims the whole house.
Right. It's like if the guy who checks the boiler suddenly decides he's also the chef and the marriage counselor.
Perfect analogy. When the manager claims the whole house, he evicts kairos.
And kairos is...
Kairos is the opportune moment. It's qualitative time. It's that feeling when you're deep in a conversation and 3 hours just vanish.
Flow state.
It's flow state. It's the timing of a joke or a kiss. You cannot schedule kairos on a spreadsheet.
No, you really can. You have to feel it.
But the boardroom mind views kairos as unproductive because it can't be measured, so it gets evicted. And this leads to maybe the most heartbreaking metaphor in the whole piece.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
He talks about the orchard forced to file timesheets.
Ugh, that line.
Yeah.
It actually made me emotional when I read it. The orchard forced to file timesheets.
Think about an apple tree. It goes through seasons, winter, spring, summer. It gathers sun, it gathers rain. It is doing gestalt work constantly, gathering meaning, gathering resources. But it doesn't produce an apple every single day at 9 a.m.
Right. You can't just yell at a tree, why haven't you initiated the fruit production sequence?
Monitor your blossom output. But that is exactly what we do to ourselves. For those of us with gestalt minds, we are the orchard. We work in cycles.
We have seasons of dormancy.
Exactly. Where we look like we're doing nothing, but we're actually gathering strength. And then we have seasons of harvest where we produce incredibly fast.
But the manager is standing there with his clipboard screaming at us in the middle of winter.
Yes. And we are exhausting ourselves trying to explain our winter to a man who is allergic to weather. We're trying to translate our organic process into his corporate grammar. And it is making us sick.
It really is burnout, isn't it? It's not just working hard. It's the friction of being a tree trying to be a machine.
That's it. So the mission, as Hoerricks puts it, isn't to fire the manager. We need him to watch the bread. The mission is to put him back in his place, to decolonize the skull by stripping him of his absolute power.
So how do we actually do that? In the moment when I'm staring at that cursor?
It starts with just recognition. You have to hear the voice and identify it. When you hear, "You're lazy," you have to stop and say, "Nope." That is the foreman speaking. That's the accent of the workplace.
And then what? Do we argue with him?
You reframe. You switch dictionaries. You tell yourself, I am not stalling. I am gathering meaning. I am not lazy. I am discerning. I am waiting for the kairos.
That takes a lot of trust, though. You have to trust that the fruit will come.
You do. And that is the hardest part for people who've been conditioned by the school system. We don't trust our own rhythms. But Hoerricks suggests that if we stop forcing the orchard to file tone sheets, the harvest will actually be better.
It's about allowing yourself to begin in the middle. I think I'm going to put that on a sticky note. It's permission to be messy.
It's permission to exist as a human being, not just a unit of production. It's a way to be well that doesn't require you to be a tidy office.
Which is such a relief because I don't think I'm ever going to be a tidy office. I'm always going to be the used bookstore.
And used bookstores are full of treasures that you can't find in a tidy office.
That is very true. So let's recap because we've covered a lot of ground. We started with the shame of the to-do list. We found out executive functioning is basically an internalized capitalist manager who hates weather and loves spreadsheets.
We learned that this manager uses corporate verbs to make us feel defective, especially if we are gestalt thinkers who need to see the whole picture before we can take the first step.
And we learned the solution isn't to become a better CEO. It's to realize we're an orchard. We keep the manager for the train schedules, but we don't let him into the garden.
Beautifully put.
So here's the thought I want to leave everyone with. We talked about how loud that internal foreman is. He's been yelling at us since 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
But Hoerricks ends his piece with this really provocative idea of what happens when he stops talking.
Or at least when we stop listening so closely.
Right. If you tuned out the man who has never met the moon, who else might you hear?
It's a profound question. There is a silence underneath all that noise of productivity.
What living weather or moon might you finally be able to meet? And most importantly, if you finally let your internal orchard stop filing timesheets, what kind of fruit might actually grow?
I have a feeling it would be something worth waiting for.
I think so too. Something to think about the next time you're hesitating. Maybe it's not laziness. Maybe it's discernment. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Take care.